Hey, baby. Go ahead and give me 5 on the black hand side. That feels like a proper greeting for my peoples on this last Wednesday of Black History Month. Welcome to the Melanin Mayhem podcast, hosted by your favorite country girl, Renee Davis. If this is your first time joining in on this here good shit, let me tell you, honey, this thing is lagniappe. That's some of that Cajun French shit for it's good and a little extra. You'll see. And to my main things, my cousins by the dozens. How your mama and them? Ooh, we about to get into some fuckery this week, shit. Oh yes, ain't no other way to put it, y'all. I done found one of the most disgusting cases of sadistic serial killing. And you know I done told y'all some shit. This week's episode comes with a trigger warning, and I haven't done that since Natural Born Killers. But I felt the need to let you know today's episode is graphic. Ain't no way around it. This nigga only got into some murderation type situations 4 times, but he did them 4 motherfucking times. He did it big. And when I say he did it audacious and sadistic, now, you know, when you hear the words menage a trois, you thinking of some goody good, right? Not this nigga. He was legit out here on some murder a trois type of time. This nigga was doing group killings, y'all. Now, it's a lot of things we can do as a group, and killing just ain't supposed to be one of 'em. But he did, and I gotta tell y'all all about it. And I'm just gonna let you know now, we gonna be pissed. So consider yourself warned. Now it's almost Mardi Gras, so why not take this thing to Cajun country? This week we're going to Shreveport, Louisiana, baby. Today I got one of them kind of stories that's gonna have you scratching your head on how the fuck did this happen. It checks off all of the boxes to be a Melanin Mayhem hitter. This nigga was definitely prolific. He was Shreveport's first serial killer. His crimes were as audacious as can be, and he got away with it. And had he not felt the need to fuck with the police, the nigga would still be out here on them streets. You gon' see. So without further ado, let's bring this funky ass nigga to the front of the congregation for a good old school dragging. This week's Melanin Mayhem maker is Mr. Nathaniel Code Jr., aka Mr. Kill Your Whole Family. Okay, y'all, before we get started, as you can hear, I am still sinusy stuffed up, and I am hoping to get through this without sounding like I'm talking directly through my nose. But honey, these allergies or whatever it is I got going on, it's got your girl laid low. So we gonna press through, right? We gonna do this. And hopefully I will be able to make it to the end of this without sounding so totally. But I apologize. Y'all know my voice normally sounds a whole lot better than this. I'm gonna do what I can in editing, but honey, it is what it is. All right, so let's get into this shit. Nathaniel Robert Code Jr. was born March 12th, 1956. Now, his daddy was Nathaniel Code Sr., and his mama, her name was Calvert Miles. And in looking at how this family makeup is described, it was some shit going on in this little family. It looks like the auntie, a woman named Josephine Code, she was trying to bring some stability to the life of her nephew. Now, I don't know how all this went down, but Josephine was married to a man named William Code. She got her husband, William, to adopt her nephew, her sister's son. This boy is Nathaniel Sr. So she went from being his auntie to his mama, and her husband, through adoption, became his legally adoption daddy, right? Now, this will all be relevant in a little bit, but I needed to hit you up with this little bit of background because it's some shit that's going to go down in the future that's going to just blow your mind. So, again, for Nathaniel Robert Code Jr., his parents were married for a hot little minute. And then when Nathaniel Jr. was around 6 months old, everything went to hell in a handbasket, and Josephine and William stepped in to save the day again, and they raised baby Nathaniel Jr. Now, I have to assume that drugs were involved because Nathaniel Jr. didn't have no relationship with his mama. Say she died in like 83, and his daddy was in and out of his life, talking about senior, and he died in 1984. But this little mayhem maker, they say that little nigga was always a little off. And that's what they called it in the 70s and 80s. But the signs were there that Junior was a lot off. And like many black families in the 60s, they just swept that shit under the rug and ignored it. Like, they say that Nathaniel was peculiar. He would do crazy shit. Like, you'll be talking to him and he'll be talking to you, and he'll just stop in the middle of whatever he was saying and just stare off into nothing. Like, I don't care what he was doing, talking, coloring, eating, he would just go off. Like, put your ass in timeout. And trying to get him back on track, oh, that shit wasn't happening. So everybody just started ignoring his little timeout sessions. Now, they say when Nathaniel was a little nigga, around 11 or 12, he lived in a rough neighborhood called Bel Air. Well, apparently, in this particular neighborhood, there was a homosexual that everybody called Granny. Now, Granny was known to give the little boys some of that malt liquor and then lick 'em. You know what I'm talking about. Well, Granny became friends with Nathaniel, and then the hood did what the hood do, and they started calling Nathaniel Granny Jr., meaning that Nathaniel was also homosexual. Now, y'all know this world was not tolerant in the 70s and 80s for anybody under the rainbow flag. So, this was no good for Nathaniel. Well, let me tell you, honey, one day, Granny came up dead. Somebody beat Granny in the head with a cast iron skillet, and everybody in the hood said that it was Nathaniel that did it. mm Well, the police couldn't prove it, and they didn't care one way or the other, so the case just faded away. Just another unsolved murder in the hood, right? But Nathaniel was marked. He was that nigga that was off. They said that he would be torturing animals and shit, just pouring lighter fluid on them and setting them on fire. He was a sadistic torturer in training, if you will. He was that odd, peculiar little boy that didn't nobody fuck with because crazy do crazy shit. Well, Nathaniel would go on and eventually drop out of high school, and he just kind of bummed around, doing, little neighborhood jobs, cutting grass and taking out the trash and all that little shit, picking up cans. But he also developed a habit of indulging in that booger sugar. He liked to treat his nose a little bit. But y'all know that shit is not cheap. And in the 70s and 80s, it damn sure wasn't cheap. But Nathaniel had a habit, and he had a way of getting that money. If he was short on cash around the first of the month, he would go around and bully his auntie Grandma Josephine into giving up her Social Security check. Remember, she the one that got her husband to adopt this nigga daddy, and her grandson up in here goddamn just terrorizing her ass. Well, Nathaniel goes on, and around July of 1975, when he was 19 years old, Nathaniel was arrested. Can you believe it? Guess what they charged him with? Climbing through the window of a 20-something-year-old woman. She had an apartment in Cedar Grove. Baby, he climbed through her window and raped her. Now, she reported the rape. She told them who did it. Nathaniel's crazy ass. And they went and snatched Nathaniel's crazy ass up from his granddaddy's house where he was living. His granddaddy named William Code? Yeah, that's where he was staying. Well, unlike many of these cases in the 70s, where the niggas was getting a slap on the wrist for using their dicks as weapons of mass destruction, they actually gave Nathaniel's punk ass some time. But as per usual, They dropped the rape down to attempted aggravated rape, but kept the burglary as regular burglary, and he got more time for the burglary than he did for the rape. They gifted his ass with 15 years to do at Angola. Now, Angola, from what I have read, ain't no motherfucking joke. So Nathaniel heads off to do his bid. Now, once he gets in prison, it is said that his peoples was just shocked and amazed that Nathaniel could do something like this. And of course, they didn't believe it. That bitch lying on Junior. Junior would never. Okay, Nathaniel's ass is a little off. We all know that. He quiet, sure. And y'all just assume that quiet meant that he wouldn't use his dick as a weapon? He did. He did that shit and he got time for that shit. Deal with it. Now, it's also around this time that this nigga starts spending a little time with the shrinks, and they diagnose him as being a paranoid schizophrenic. So Nathaniel is certifiable. This is what we have here now. Let's see what this nigga do. He did almost 9 years before they let him out on good behavior, and he was back on the streets of Cedar Grove, supposedly a changed, rehabilitated man that didn't want to use his dick to hurt nobody no more. Okay. They gave Nathaniel his walking papers in January of 1984, and he go back to the hood, to his granddaddy house for a little while. He get a job at Ernest's Supper Club, but that shit didn't last long. 'Cause Nathaniel crazy, and ain't nobody got time for your crazy ass. Well, 6 months later, in August of 1984, 25-year-old Deborah Ann Ford was found stabbed to death in her house, a house that her daddy had purchased for her. See, Deborah's daddy had wanted her to have some real estate, but he was thinking more along the lines of rental property. But Deborah wanted to live in her little house and make it her own. She didn't care that it was in the hood, 'cause Deborah wasn't no scary chick. Like, legit, Deb could be described as what we would say today as a gym rat. Like, your girl could bench press 150, and she played touch football with the homies, and she kept that pew-pew with her, so she wasn't no scary bitch. Baby, Deborah had two little girls that lived with her mama, right? 'Cause the school district was better over at her mama's house. But please understand, Deborah was an everyday part of their life. Well, on August the 30th, 1984, Deborah took her children school shopping, right? And when they got back to her house, one of her daughters noticed that the bathroom window had been open. That motherfucker wasn't supposed to be open. So they put a stick crossways over the top of the window to try to hold it shut. And then they moved on about their business. Now, as the day went on, the girls tried to get Deborah to spend the night with them at their grandmama house, but you know how we do as grown folks. I got shit to do. I'm in my house. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Okay, Deborah. And the kids leave and go back to their grandmama's house. And a little while later, a couple of Deborah's friends come over and they shoot the shit for a little while. And Deborah's house is empty and she getting ready for bed. Let's call it 11:30, 12 o'clock that night. Well, Nathaniel's punk ass was somewhere in the cut watching all this shit happening at Deborah's house. Like, we talking this nigga out here for some hours, lurking and plotting and shit, right? He go back to that same window. He jiggled that bitch and he was able to get that stick to move. He came in through the window and he started walking through Deb's house. Now, mind you, this is a little shotgun house, 3 rooms in a row, right? He come across a box fan. He cuts the cord off the box fan. He see a house dress. He grabbed that up too. Now, mind you, all of this is going on while Deborah is asleep on the sofa in the front room. Nathaniel made his way to that front room and he is just standing over Deborah. And then this nigga commenced to molly-whopping her ass. Like, Deborah woke up trying to fight, but shit, Nathaniel had a head start. Imagine you deep in your sleep and you wake up in the middle of a fight. She dazed and seeing stars and trying to fight back, but it's too late at this point. Nathaniel done flipped her over. He took that extension cord that he had cut and he bound her arms behind her back in this little figure 8 type of looking knot. It looked like a zip tie type of situation that he has done up with just a cord. He take that house dress and he gags her with it. And then he proceeds to rape her. And if that wasn't enough, this nigga started jugging her with a knife. Like he stuck that woman 9 times in her chest. Then this nigga went to town with that knife. I'm talking about blood everywhere. He dragged Deborah down to the floor. He stabbed her some more. 2 times on her left side, 7 times on her right. I'm talking this nigga is sticking her so hard that the knife is going through her lungs. He drags her body to the middle of the room and then cut her throat 6 times from right to left. He cut through her jugular. He cut through her carotid artery. He cut through her larynx and esophagus. He damn near cut her down to her spine. And she was alive for most of this cutting. Even though he had done stabbed the fuck out of her before he started the sawing. Girl, woo, woo. And then this audacious ass nigga just wipes his hands on her gold sofa and get ready to leave. He steal everything that's of value in her house. Then he turn the AC up on full blast. And then he turn on the radio, grab her pocketbook, and make his way out. So the next morning, a friend of hers came over around about 8 o'clock in the morning. She wanted to use Deborah's phone. Instead, she finds Deborah laying face down on the living room floor, damn near hogtied, with that cord from the box fan, her nightgown on inside out. Of course, the friend lose her shit and go running and screaming through the neighborhood for somebody to call somebody, because what the fuck? She came over here to use the phone and walk up on a murder scene. So the police come. It's already a nice crowd outside of Deborah's house because, mind you, this is pre-internet and this is what folks did. If something happened in the hood come out to see what happened and they stay on the scene. Somebody got to be eyewitness news. Hood reporters got a job to do, and they did their motherfucking job. So the police, they put up the crime scene tape and they're trying to deal with the horrible sight of this woman that's been killed so violently. I mean, damn, he did enough killation on her ass to kill 6 or 7 motherfuckers. They find that her revolver was still under the sofa cushions, like Deborah didn't even have time to grab it. The only evidence they collect is a palm print on the bathroom window. I mean, I guess that's something. And guess who was in the crowd gathered outside the police tape? Nathaniel dirty dick ass was right there looking looing like a motherfucker. And guess where Nathaniel lived, y'all? In the house behind Deborah's house. This nigga been watching her from his yard for who knows how long. Now, normally, this is where I start asking what the police got to say, right? And to the credit of the coroner, a man named Dr. George McCormick, after he saw Deborah's body, he told the police that this was the work of a serial killer and this motherfucker was gonna kill again. He said that he was sure it was a serial killer because the 4 elements needed to be a serial was right here. He said, 1, this nigga want total control over his victims. That's why he tied her up. 2, he used a knife to cut and stab. Regular non-serial killing motherfuckers, they do one or the other. They don't do both. 3, the use of the electrical cord cut from something nearby. Mm-mm. And then 4, the way he bound her up. I'm talking that zip tie without a zip tie type of situation. That's what they call a signature. Well, the police was like, thank you, Mr. Coroner, but we'll take it from here. Okay. Y'all know what that means. Did nobody find Deborah's killer? So we moving on. In June of 1985, another overkill, a dude named West Burks, was found beat to eternal sleep in his house on St. Vincent Avenue, right around the corner from where Deborah Ann stayed. Somebody opened up a supersized can of whoop ass on his ass in his own damn kitchen. I'm talking a bloodbath for no reason at all. Nathaniel apparently had had words with Wes Burks, and then Wes Burks ended up dead. But they didn't ever find Wes Burks' killer. Okay. But this was just the opening act, honey, because the following month, July 19th, 1985, a quadruple murderation type of situation happened right up the street from Deborah's house, right around the corner from West Burke's. Baby, you heard me. I said a quadruple. 4 whole human beings got at the same damn time. Yeah, I'm finna tell you how it happened. See, what had happened was 34-year-old Vivian Cheney had moved from Alexandria, Virginia to Shreveport, Louisiana to help take care of her 25-year-old brother, Jerry Colbert. Now, Jerry, he was basically blind, so she moved down with her 3 daughters, 15-year-old Carlitha, 10-year-old Tamika, and 7-year-old Marla. And they were going to help him because, that's what family do. And Vivian also had a little boo thing, 28-year-old Billy Joe Harris. Pause. I see you, Vivian. Got you a little tenderoni. I hear you, girl. Anyway, Billy Joe moved down too to be with his woman. So now Viv and Carlitha, they're also sight impaired, but not as much as Jerry. So this little family unit of 6 people, they depended on each other to make shit work, right? And they did. They lived, they loved, they had friends, they went to church, just a regular black family in the hood. Well, the afternoon of July 18th, 1985, Vivian took her girls to go get some ice cream. On the way back, Vivian stopped to shoot the shit with one of the neighbors, and her oldest daughter, Carlitha, she went over to the church for a little function that they were having. The evening was nothing special. The guys, they sat around drinking beer and talking shit, and then Vivian put the chair in the bed around about 9 o'clock like she normally do, and the house settled down, called it a night. Well, somewhere around midnight, somebody jimmied open the back door. It's Nathaniel. He grabs up 15-year-old Carlitha out her sleep and drag her out her bed into the next room where Vivian and Billy Joe sleeping. Somehow, some way, Nathaniel missed Tamika and Marla. These babies had their wits about them just enough to know and understand that evil had entered their house and they needed to hide. And they did. They tiptoed to a closet and they hid. Now, Nathaniel, he got this gun on Carlitha. So, of course, Vivian and her man ain't trying to do nothing that's going to get her hurt. And that was Nathaniel's whole plan. Use Carlitha to make them do what he wanted them to do. So he tell Billy Joe to stay in the bed. Nathaniel ties Billy Joe's hands behind his back with a shoelace in a figure-8 pattern, kind of like a zip tie. He binds his ankles the same way with another shoelace. He take a cord that he cut from a telephone and loop that shit through the restraints between his ankles and his arms. He basically hog-tied Billy Joe. Then he grabbed a pillow, and the next thing you hear was 4 gunshots. Nathaniel just took Billy Joe out with 2 to the dome and 2 to the chest. Now he take another cord, and he binds Vivian's hands behind her back, around her waist, and down to her feet in that same figure-8 pattern. I mean, he basically got her ass trussed up like a Thanksgiving turkey. And to add insult to injury, he take another cord and wrap it around her neck like a leash, and then he frog marches her and her daughter out the room. I mean, she tied up and terrified, and he still got this gun on Carlitha. They walk across the hall to Jerry's room. Jerry is asleep in his bed. He ain't heard shit. Next thing he know, he waking up with Jesus. Nathaniel done shot Jerry 1 time, but he didn't tie him up or nothing like that, right? He just shot him and kept it moving. Well, at this point, the men are gone. It's just Vivian and Carlitha with this madman. Vivian doesn't know that her other 2 babies are still alive. I would assume that she assumed they was dead and it was just her and Carlitha. He forces them to go into the living room. At this point, Nathaniel ties up Carlitha's hands with a cord from an iron in that same figure-8 style. He tied her up at her ankles, and at some point, he took some silver duct tape and put it over her mouth. He made Vivian sit on the floor while he raped and stabbed her daughter. And then he slit her throat. No, that's putting it nicely. What this nigga did was slash her throat until he damn near decapitated her. Just like Deborah. Like legit separated her head from her body. Only a little sliver of skin is still holding everything together. And Vivian is right there. Carlita's blood is everywhere. And Vivian is being forced to sit in it and watch this man kill her daughter. Sight impaired or not, she wasn't blind. She could see and hear what the fuck he was doing to her baby. I can't even imagine the horror that that woman suffered through watching this monster kill her whole family. When Carlita was found, her shorts were on inside out. The only person left now was Vivian. Nathaniel made Vivian get up out that blood and walk to the bathroom where he started using her head as a punching bag. Now, mind you, she still got this leash on, this loop of cord wrapped around her neck, as well as her hands and ankles. Nathaniel filled the tub up with water, and then he proceeds to strangle and drown Vivian. Like, nigga, can you pick one? What the fuck? I mean, I guess he was in a slashing kind of mood because after he finished with Vivian, he went back in there where Billy Joe was and started cutting this man's neck. Sir, Billy Joe already dead. This just pure fucking evil. And oh, diabolical motherfucker just out here trying to put some stank on this shit. Like that's overkill. Super, super overkill. Now, after everybody's dead, he go from room to room shopping. He pick up a pink striped bag, right? And he steal Jerry's wallet. There's a jar of change. He pick up some food stamps, and I'm talking actual stamps. This is pre-card days. These are actual stamps. Where if you don't know what I'm talking about, a book of paper that got denominations on it that you take to the store, and you give them what you want, and they give you change back. All of the cash that he could find in the house, which is about $100. And before he leave, he stopped, turn on the AC, turn on the stereo, and then he dip out the back door the same way he came in. Now, what's even crazier, y'all, is that Vivian's other two daughters, they still hiding in the closet. And Nathaniel either forgot or he didn't care because he knew how many children Vivian had and how many people lived in this house. Them babies came out that closet when they heard Nathaniel leave, and they saw that awful crime scene, and it was just too much for their little young minds to process. They went and got back in their beds and went to sleep. Lord Jesus, talk about traumatized. Ooh, Jesus. Well, wait a minute, Nate. So how they got found? Let me tell you that bullshit. Vivian and Jerry, they had another sister that lived in California. Her name was Shirley Colbert. It just so happened that she had decided to surprise her siblings and pop up on their ass for a visit. She took a bus from California to Shreveport. When she got to the bus station, she got in a taxi to go to their house. Shirley pulls up about 6 a.m. and she knocking on the door. Ain't no answer. But she can hear the stereo blasting. That's odd. So she walk around to the back of the house, go to the back door. That motherfucker open. Okay, that's real odd. She walks in and she can see Jerry, her brother. He is laying on the bed like sleep. And so she like, hey, little brother, surprise. But he don't move. He don't respond. He don't do nothing. So he must be sleep. So Shirley go and she jump on the bed and she start play wrestling with Jerry. But he limp. And then she see the blood. I can't even imagine. Like there are literally no words for what will go through my mind. Oh my God. So she going through the house and she see the rest of her family deader than a motherfucker. She find her baby nieces sleep in their bed. It take her a minute to realize that they ain't dead and to actually get them to wake up. And when they finally do wake up, they wake up screaming. I mean, because it wasn't a dream. This shit really happened in their house. Aunt Shirley hauled their asses out of there and called the cops. Oh, Lord. Now, New Nation, I need y'all to understand that Nathaniel was not trying to hide in the shadows. Like, when this shit went down, people saw him. Like, being obviously suspicious. What you mean by that, name? Somebody saw him before and after the killation. A neighbor. And not just any neighbor. This nigga was a member of the National Guard. Nigga, you been trained in some shit. This neighbor, his name was Oscar Washington. He said that he saw Nathaniel outside of Carlita's house around 2:15ish in the morning. And that he actually spoke to Nathaniel. Like, what's up, nigga? And Nathaniel was like, hey, what's up? I'm finna go take care of some business right quick. And so the National Guard member, he out doing his early morning PT. He out jogging, right? He said when he seen Nathaniel the first time, he had a brown paper sack when he saw him. He finished his run like 45 minutes later, and he said he saw Nathaniel again. Now, mind you, he said he didn't think anything of it because it was normal to see Nathaniel throwed off ass just roaming around the hood all times of the day and night. He said that, he needed to get out and clear his head sometime, and the nighttime air was good for him. Okay. Well, this particular time when he seen Nathaniel, Nathaniel is covered in blood. That's what the National Guard man say. He's covered in blood. Sir, what? And this time, that brown bag is gone, and now he got a striped pink bag. Now, the National Guard man was like, Nathaniel, what happened? Where all that blood come from? And he said Nathaniel told him, I got into it with somebody, but I came out on top. And then he tried to sell Oscar some shit. What he tried to sell him, Nate? Everything that he had just stole from Vivian Nim house, including that gun that he had just used to shoot Jerry and Billy Joe. A whole ass murder weapon can be yours if the price is right. Oscar said he looked in the bag and he seen a knife that looked like a dagger, and there was some food stamps and some weed. He said the food stamps had blood on them. Now, let me tell you something. I subscribe to minding the business that pays you. But if a nigga you know is crazy just so happens to cross paths with you twice in the same day, and the first time is like, hey, how you doing? And the second time you see him covered in blood and he trying to sell you some shit that got blood all over it, it is perfectly okay to think that this nigga done did some shit and you need to call somebody. I don't care if you just call Tyrone and run this crazy situation by him to see if maybe, just maybe, you should call the authorities. I mean, shit, make an anonymous call, but to just walk away? That's diabolical. Cause you ain't even got to know if you see somebody in the wee hours of the morning covered in blood that some shit just went down. Covered in blood? Come on, man, stop the madness. Not to mention, you in the National Guard. You been trained in some shit. Motherfucker, you ain't your just degular dude. You know some stuff. You knew something had happened. But wait, there's more. A few hours later, the hood is lit up like Christmas, and the word get out that the whole ass family just got frizzled. And Mr. National Guard man, you didn't make the connection? Get the fuck out of here. I ain't even trying to hear none of that. Now I keep telling y'all this is pre-internet. So when the crime scene tape come out, the neighborhood come out. It was buku motherfuckers outside Carlita's house, including Nathaniel good killing ass. Although by now he has changed his clothes and he not covered in blood. But as for that punk ass National Guard neighbor that saw him and then saw the crime scene tape, and heard on the news that your neighbors, a whole ass family, just got sent to the upper room and some connections were made, that motherfucker ain't said shit. The police do not know who did this quadruple killation, but they did find a palm print on the bathtub. And the duct tape that was used on Carlita, they determined that it was industrial strength duct tape. It wasn't the kind that you can just buy at the store like as John Q. Public. No, this was something that a professional would have. And around that time, Nathaniel had picked up a little job at a plumbing company. Of course, it didn't last long, but that was the kind of duct tape that they used. And while the police didn't know who did that shit, they did feel like they had seen that crime scene before. Oh, yeah. Last year when Deborah got round the motherfucking corner. Same kind of restraint. tied in that figure eight type of way like a zip tie, tied up with cords from appliances in the house, and overkilled like a motherfucker. The police canvassed the neighborhood, but ain't nobody seen shit, and ain't nobody calling Nathaniel's name. Ain't that some bullshit? Woo, child. It's too much, honey. But you know how I like to say, it's a lid for every pot. Well, Nathaniel found his lid. Oh, yes. This nigga got married in 1986 to a woman named Vera. Mm-hmm. They moved into a house on East 73rd Street in the Cedar Grove neighborhood. Nathaniel, his wife, and his half brother named Eddie Code. Now that sounds normalish, right? If you forget the fact that Nathaniel is a stone cold killer. Now Nathaniel, his wife Vera, and the brother Eddie, none of them are working. They picking up little odd jobs and whatnot. But Nathaniel still like that booger sugar. So what little money they do get, he put it up his nose. Well, before long, the utilities get cut off, but they don't care. 'Cause they say they would bathe and use the phone at their neighbor's house. Pause. What the fuck kind of neighbors do that kind of shit? Like, sure, back in the day, I would let somebody use my cordless phone from the hood. Absolutely. I've given an egg or two, maybe some sugar, but I ain't never even let a motherfucker use my bathroom to take a whole ass bath. Let me tell you something, you can't even shit in my bathroom. Take a bath? Boy, you better miss me with that. Nope. But apparently, somebody was letting Nathaniel and them come in and use the facilities as needed. Okay. Anywho, so Nathaniel and his little family, they used candles when they needed some light, and they had a little camping stove that they cooked on or whatever. But they didn't have no furniture. And Nathaniel said he liked it like that. He preferred the minimalistic look. He didn't want no bills. His house was basically the cat house. I mean, you could come over and drink and smoke and snort, and the local Punani sales ladies would come over and bust down their johns while Nathaniel got a little piece of the cut. Okay. I'm telling y'all, this nigga is throwed off. Check this out. 'Cause of his little nose candy habit, some kind of way, he got into some shit 'cause he owed the neighborhood dope boys some money and he couldn't pay it back. Well, the dope boys was like, look, you got X amount of days to run me my money or we gonna beat your ass on this specific day, right? Well, Nathaniel didn't have it. He ain't got no job, so he came up with a plan to go to the police and become a confidential informant. I can't make this shit up, y'all. I'm like, this is so serious. On August 4th, 1987, he calls the Shreveport Police Department and offers his services to help clean up the streets. And SPD was like, okay, come on down and we'll set you up. Well, Nathaniel didn't have no way to get down now. So they sent a police officer to come pick him up, somewhere else. Well, he gets down to the station and he give them information on the three dealers that he owed money to. Okay, snitch. Tell me why. The next motherfucking day, August 5th, 1987, he called back down to the Shreveport Police Department and was like, so, one of them dope boys ain't got no more cocaine. And the other two told me don't worry about what I owe them. So, since they ain't trying to fuck me up no more, I ain't gonna snitch on them. Y'all be easy, okay? What? Now, y'all might be thinking that this nigga has laid low, Nate. I ain't heard you say nothing about him fucking nobody up. Maybe he just content with terrorizing animals and shit by now. But like Kendrick said, sometimes you gotta pop out and show motherfuckers. And show motherfuckers he did. At the same time where he was trying to snitch out the block, he was doing some real negacious fuckeration in the background. Mind you, by 1987, at this point, everybody that was kin to Nathaniel was dead, just about. I mean, his mama and his daddy was gone, his grandmama gone. They all in the upper room. But he still had his granddaddy. Remember? Mr. William Code, the one that adopted his daddy? He's still around. But that relationship was non-existent because Granddaddy Code, he stood on business. And Nathaniel was a mess. And Mr. William wasn't having no parts of that bullshit. Well, the next day, August 5th, 1987. The same day he told the Shreveport Police Department that he didn't want to be a CI, this nigga killed his granddaddy. Yes, I said grandmotherfucking daddy, William T. Code. Remember in the intro, I described how the aunt had her husband adopt the nephew? Yeah, that's who is now dead. Let me run this shit down for you. Now, Granddaddy Code, William T. Code, he was 73 years old, and he didn't fuck with Nathaniel like that at all, 'cause that nigga was crazy. But Granddaddy Code, he was known to take in boys that needed a male role model in their life, whether they were his little lady friend kids or grandchildren or some neighborhood boys. If you came to Mr. William and said that you needed some help to keep your boys on the straight and narrow, he was your guy to jump in the trenches and try to raise a young black boy. So the two boys that were currently being mentored by Mr. William were the grandchildren of his old lady, 71-year-old Enamertine Williams. Well, Enamertine had two grandsons, 12-year-old Joe Robinson Jr. and his brother, 8-year-old Eric Williams. Now, in Ambertine, she's 71. She's seasoned, mature, and trying to raise some boys that had way more energy than she know what to do with was a bit much. Luckily for her, her old man was the type to help, and he stepped in to try to keep these boys from getting a prison ID number. So while the boys lived with her, they spent a fair amount of time at Mr. Williams' house. On August 4th, 1987, the boys was at Mr. Williams' house and he had them out in the yard cutting grass and doing yard work and shit. It got late, and instead of taking them back to their grandmama house, he told Miss Ambertine, "Tell you what, baby, they're gonna spend the night over here and we'll see you in the morning. We'll go get some breakfast." And she was like, "All right, bet." Well, tomorrow came, August 5th. No William, no boys. And now Martine done called over to Mr. Williams' house a whole bunch of times. Ain't nobody answering the phone. That is totally unlike Mr. Williams. He the type that when he say he gonna do something, he do that shit. Next thing you know, and now Martine got a call from Mr. Williams' job. He didn't show up for work today. They wanted to know if he was all right. Well, at this point, and now Martine knows something is hella wrong, 'cause William don't fuck up his coins. So and now Martine go over to her old man's house. She get there. His truck is in the driveway, but the house is still. Y'all know how it is when the house is just still. He got burglar bars and a burglar door, but the house is locked up tight. She knocking, but she ain't getting no answer. But she can hear music playing. The fuck is that all about? So she go around and she start looking in windows. And then she look in one window and she can see the foot of Joe, her grandson. Whatever she saw scared the fuck out of her. 'Cause why the fuck is Joe laying down? And why he ain't answering his door? So she go back home. She called the police. And then she go back to Mr. Williams' house. But this time she ain't going by herself. She got her brother, Hitonkus Bugs. Ooh, that's a name. Hitonkus. They don't name him that no more. She got Hitonkus and she got her niece and her granddaughter to go with her. Now, while Enamertine doesn't have a key to the door, she does have a key to the burglar bar windows. So she opened up the window and her brother crawled through the window and he see a gruesome scene. He come out the front door and he tell Enamertine that they got to wait on the police. He ain't want to tell her what he saw, but she knew it was bad. Nathaniel must have came through after his granddaddy had gone to bed, and somehow 12-year-old Joe must have opened the door for Nathaniel, and Nathaniel stole that ass. Cold cocked that little boy and laid him out with a one-hit quitter, 'cause he didn't have time to alert nobody, yell, nothing. They found him laying face down on the sofa. His hands was tied behind his back in a figure 8 type of fashion, kind of like a zip tie. His ankles was tied and there was a cord around his neck. He had been strangled. His brother, 8-year-old Eric, same thing. He had been snatched up out his bed and was face down on the floor between the two twin beds, tied up the same way his brother was, strangled the same way his brother was. And both of them only had on underwear that was turned inside out. Now, no kind of killation is good, but them boys didn't suffer the way their granddaddy did. See, William Code was in his bed, sleep, and he ain't never even see it coming. He was face down in his bed. He was tied up the same way, with his hands behind his back in a zip tie type of situation with an electrical cord running down to his ankles. He had a cord wrapped around his neck, holding a gag in his mouth, and he had been beaten real bad, y'all. And I'm talking stabbed 5 times in his chest, then he flipped him over and stabbed him 7 more times in his back, got him once on his right arm through an artery. Anybody seeing a pattern here besides me in the corner? Now, Mr. William had cashed a check, and it should have been about $600 in the house. They didn't find no money nowhere. Well, a neighbor said that he saw Nathaniel coming out of Mr. Williams' house sometime after 8 o'clock. He said he saw Nathaniel shut the inner door and then close the burglar bar door. And he thought that that was strange because Mr. Williams was known for walking people to the door and seeing them leave. And then he would make sure that his doors was locked. Plus the fact the neighbor knew Mr. William didn't fuck with Nathaniel like that for him to even be at his house, much less at the door by himself. Okay, so I'm gonna let that sit right there and marinate for a minute. Let's go back to Nathaniel's punk ass. That same day, August 5th, 1987, this nigga done came up 'cause he called his cousin Beatrice to come over and let's get geeked. I'm talking about geek. And in the 80s, cocaine was expensive. They say Nathaniel went and got a gram, which was running like 150. They tooted that shit up right quick. Then they went to the Nathaniel out there buying malt liquor and Mad Dog and shit. Are we drinking too? Okay, cuz. On the way back from the store, Nathaniel go and buy another gram of coke. Now, nigga, where you get $300 to blow on some blow? Well, cousin Beatrice don't care, 'cause you know what you ain't supposed to know, you ain't supposed to know. Well, when they finish getting geek, Nathaniel go across the street to his neighbor house, the Harts. Now, the Harts are just so happen to be watching the news. They see a story about a man named William Code that has been found murdered in his house. They tell Nathaniel, "Hey, ain't your folks named William Code?" And Nathaniel say, "Yeah, that's my granddaddy." Well, they say, "Well, somebody killed him. It's on the news." Now, Nathaniel playing his role to a T. He like, "What? Not my granddaddy. Let me use your phone." He calls a number, but don't nobody answer. Nigga, you knew wasn't nobody gonna answer that goddamn phone. So then he called somebody else in the neighborhood, and they were like, "Hey, you need to get over here. Something going down at your granddaddy's house. It's a situation." So, he acting and he all upset, and the Hearts was like, "Okay, we'll drive you." And they take Nathaniel to his granddaddy's house. Well, try to. The streets was congested, so they couldn't really get through. So Nathaniel get out and he walk. He busting through the crowd and shit, walked right up to a cop and was like, "Hey, did my granddad's house." So they let him through the crime scene tape. And a detective starts asking him questions. This nigga tells the detective that the night before that his granddaddy had called him and told him that some thugs was hanging around his house and he was a little worried. And so Nathaniel said that he told his granddaddy, "Don't worry about it, granddaddy. I'm on the way." And he got to his granddaddy's house about 1 o'clock in the morning. He checked out the scene. He stayed around for about an hour. He said that when he came in the house, he tripped over a vacuum cleaner, a humidifier, and something else that was behind the door. He told the cop that, but I wrapped the cord back around the vacuum cleaner so nobody else would trip over it. Now, at this point, the detective perked up because he was kind of disinterested. But when he heard that shit about the vacuum cleaner, he was like, wait a minute. Why, Nay? Because them cords was used to tie up William and them boys. Remember? This killer liked to go in and cut the cord off an appliance and use that as a tie. So I don't even have to tell you that them cords was used the same way on Mr. William and them boys as it had been used to kill Deborah, Vivian, Carlita, Billy Joe. Well, got Nathaniel to come down to the station to answer some more questions, to help aid them in finding whoever it was that had killed his granddaddy. At least that's the story they told him to get him to come down. It's more likely that they wanted his ass in custody to make this arrest go smoother. So let's run it down. We got Nathaniel admitting that he been in the house. He's seen the appliances that was used and the cords to tie up the victims. This nigga sounded more like a suspect. So when they started canvassing the neighborhood, it came out that Mr. William didn't fuck with his grandson because he was always begging for money and the nigga was crazy. So the police was like, okay, Nathaniel, where are the clothes that you had on yesterday when you came to see your granddaddy? And Nathaniel was like, they at my house. And the police said, well, can we go get them? And Nathaniel was like, of course. And he gave the police permission to go search his house and go get his clothes. And he gave them his fingerprints and his palm prints. See, the nigga thought he was outsmarting the police. He was like, of course my fingerprints will be in my granddaddy's house. That's what he was thinking. But they really shouldn't have been in Mr. Williams' house because Mr. Williams didn't allow your ass inside his house. Okay, Nathaniel. So the police did go to Nathaniel's house, and when they got there, they found all kind of shit. Like a whole bunch of cut up electrical cords, and some of them was even tied in a figure 8 type of knot. Kind of like the nigga was practicing. They found his shoes. They got blood on them. They found a purse that would later come to be found out that it was Deborah Ann's purse. Yes, honey. So the police was like, wait a minute. Not only did he kill his granddaddy and them 2 little boys, but this nigga apparently did all them other killations that we ain't solved. Yep. When they ran them prints, that palm print was a motherfucking match to the prints that they had from the bathtub at Vivian's house and from the window at Deborah's house. God damn. So they go back to the station and they officially arrest Nathaniel on August 6, 1987. But they didn't charge him with his granddaddy's murder. Oh no. They arrested him for the murders of Vivian Chaney, Carletha Colbert, Jerry Colbert, and Billy Joe Harris, the quadruple murder from 1985. Now, they did eventually get around to charging him with the murders of William Code, Joe Robinson, Eric Williams, and Deborah Ann Ford, but he would not go to trial for those murders. And not only that, it would be 3 years before Nathaniel's diabolical ass would even see a courtroom. Honey, his defense tried everything that they could to get as much evidence as possible thrown out. They tried to get a change of venue. They challenged the death penalty as being unconstitutional. Justice delayed is not justice denied. And while he waited for trial, you would think that this audacious nigga would lay low. No, not this diabolical nigga. Do you know he caught a charge while he was in jail? Yes, this nigga was charged with instigating a riot at the motherfucking jail in 1989. It was so bad one of the guards got fucked up. Yes, just all fucking dacious. His trial finally started September 17th, 1990. And even though they knew that he was guilty of committing the murders of his grandfather, William Code, the 2 brothers that would stay in his house, Joe Robinson and Eric Williams, as well as Deborah Ann Ford's murder in 1984, he would only be tried for the quadruple homicide. How the fuck does that happen? I mean, when the evidence is there and you know for a fact you got your guy, why not stack that shit like dominoes and hit him with the big 6? I don't know. I mean, I know you can only die once, and if they convict him, he gonna fry just the same. But I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But the prosecution said that they didn't have strong enough evidence to try him for those other murders. So he goes to trial for the first-degree murders of Vivian, Carletha, Jerry, and Billy Joe, the family he killed in cold blood in July of 1985. The district attorney, a man named Scott Crichton, he took the case to trial because that was the one that had the strongest evidence that was sure to send that ass up the river. So the prosecution, They had Nathaniel's palm print from the bathtub where Vivian was drowned. They had his signature ligatures that he used. They had the motherfucking National Guard neighbor who could place Nathaniel at the scene covered in blood the night of the killation. But a lot of that was circumstantial. They also had pictures like, oh my God, so many gruesome pictures of all of that carnage. Like everybody in that courtroom was going to need therapy when that trial was over. But it worked. Even though most of the evidence was circumstantial, here's where they were able to put that thing to his ass. You see, in Louisiana, their Supreme Court had ruled that even if a defendant wasn't being charged with a particular crime that they had committed, evidence from that crime could be used against them at the trial. So, yeah, he didn't have actual factual charges for his granddad and them or for Deborah Ford, but the evidence that they collected in those cases were used at his trial to show that he was a serial murderer that murdered. Now, the trial, it went on for 23 long days, and I'm talking they put in that work. Ooh, honey, they say that trial was from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. 12 motherfucking hours? Good Lord. I guess. The prosecution had like 200 witnesses to testify and all kind of evidence, so, I guess. They say Nathaniel was unbothered as fuck during all of this. He didn't flinch, he didn't show no emotion while all of this shit played out. They say that nigga sat up in there like he was in traffic court or some shit. Like, not fighting for your life to not be sent to death row. The jurors say that he didn't look like he was slow or mentally disabled. They say he looked like a stone cold killer. And in his closing argument, the prosecutor was like, hey, there's a serial killer in this room. Can y'all please convict him? On August 6, 1990, the jury did exactly that, and they convicted that ass on all 4 counts of first-degree murder. Took them all of an hour and 12 minutes to get the job done. 3 days later, on October 9th, they deliberated for 3.5 hours before agreeing to send that ass to death row. All right. Nathaniel Code Jr. was shipped back off to the Angola prison to await his execution. But New Orleans Nation, it's here where the bullshit starts. 'Cause 35 years later, Nathaniel's murdering, raping ass is still sucking off the taxpayers' titties of Louisiana, sitting his funky murdering ass on death row. Yes, this nigga is still amongst the living. Why, Nay? 'Cause Louisiana ain't put a motherfucker to death since 2002. I mean, it's amazing that some states, like, say, Texas, they put a motherfucker to sleep every month. But in Louisiana, you gotta actually go to work to cut a motherfucker water off. Because the appeals process in Louisiana is crazy. And the more reasons the defense attorneys put in an appeal, the longer it takes for the appeal to work through the system. And then finally, when they finally finish with the state appeals, then starts the federal appeals. Nathaniel's lawyers, they wrote encyclopedia type of appeals. And it worked. Because that nigga ain't nowhere near the end of having his appeals heard. So he gets to spend his days with 3 hots and a cot, while the good citizens, including his victims' families, they foot the bill for his stay at Angola. 69-year-old Nathaniel Robert Code Jr. is inmate number 000-81600 in the Louisiana Department of Corrections. He'll probably outlive all our asses. And that, New Orleans Nation, is the story of Nathaniel Robert Code Jr., a motherfucker that killed everybody in the hood and would have gotten away with that shit had he not thought he was smart. I gotta tell y'all, I was amazed when I read up on this story. So many clues that were the same at each crime scene. The overkill, the type of restraints, the restraints being tied in the same way, the music being turned on, the victims being posed to lay face down. But it took this nigga literally walking up to the cops and basically telling them, it was me, before he was arrested. I am rarely at a loss for words, but today I can't breathe and I can't even begin to express how my heart aches for the families left behind. To know that the motherfucker that killed your people is still yet holding on? Like how? Why? I mean, it's truly luck of the draw where you live as to whether or not a monster gonna get dealt with or they're gonna get to play in your face. I am all for procedural justice. I don't want an innocent person to be put to death. But when we know for 110% it was you, nope. No appeals, no running out the clock. It's you. You got to go today. Definitely before 35 motherfucking years pass and counting. This nigga is gonna get to die of natural causes. And that's so wrong on so many levels. And on top of all of that, to add insult to injury, do you know that this motherfucker filed a lawsuit against the state of Louisiana in 2013 about the conditions on death row? Yes, you heard me. You through cussing? Okay, let me go on. Yes, this nigga and three other Walking Dead motherfuckers claimed that the heat and humidity violated the Eighth Amendment against cruel and unusual punishment, and that it violated the Americans with Disabilities Act because he had a condition that was exacerbated by the heat. Motherfucker, they are preparing y'all asses for hell. Get ready, nigga, cause you ain't seen nothing yet. Where is that Old Testament justice when you need it? I'm through. I'm through, honey. Cause my blood pressure, it ain't even supposed to be rising like this. This man got me wishing some bad gree on that ass. Surely there is a voodoo priestess that can handle this little business, right? Somebody in Louisiana need to get that doll and get that voodoo into going, okay? And just like that, we made it through a tough episode, but you know your girl got your back. Now it's your turn. I need you to spread the word on how the country girl know how to give it to you right. Go ahead and let your fingers do the walking and talking over there on the social media pages. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, I'm Melanin Mayhem Podcast, and on X, it's the Melanin Mayhem PC. There's a really dope discussion group on Facebook. You have to actually search for the group, y'all. It's called the Melanin Mayhem Podcast Discussion Group. Totally separate from the Melanin Mayhem Podcast social media page. It's private. You don't have to worry about who looking at your shit, so you can be free. It's a safe space, and we do cut up. I'm just saying. This week, I am going to shout out Cold World from Spotify. Cold, that's spelled C-O-L-E, World. Cold World said, "You are so damn funny to me. I be over here crying. I'm so glad I ran across your show. Informative and funny. Poor Elder Buns. Keep up the good work, my favorite country girl." Thank you, Cold World. I appreciate the love and support. And that goes out to all y'all. There is no me without my New Nation. And as y'all can hear, my sinuses and allergies are not letting me be great. But I'm trying to push through. Because what else I'm going to do? So much coughing and breathing I need to cut out of this podcast episode. But I'm going to take my nasally butt in here and get to editing because y'all are probably going to get some heavy breathing this week. Because it's like 2:30 in the morning, Wednesday morning, and I am literally just finishing this recording. I was doped up, man. Y'all didn't really want me on this microphone on that sleeping medicine. I'd have been up in here really talking some shit. So as I finish this recording at 2:34 in the morning, it usually take me like an hour or two to do the real editing. I don't think I got that in me. So, not to mention your girl got a whole job to be at 8 o'clock in the morning. I do see a sick day in my future. I love y'all. And I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. You know how I do. New Nation, stay safe, stay vigilant. And remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. It's one love, New Nation, and the country girl is out of here.